Coming up on this week's show, we have Coastal Magic Convention featured author Hank Edwards, and he's here to talk about the latest in his Critter Catchers series.
This is the Big Gay Fiction Podcast, the show for avid readers and passionate fans of gay romance fiction. Each week, we bring you exclusive author interviews, book recommendations, and explore the latest in gay pop culture.
Welcome to episode 151 of the Big Gay Fiction Podcast. I'm Jeff from JeffAdamsWrites.com, and with me as always is my co-host and husband, Will Knaus.
Hello, everybody. This week's episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by our remarkable group of supporters on Patreon. A big thank you to Crabbypatty for joining us. We'll have more information on how you can join Crabbypatty and the rest of our super cool Patreon crew in just a few moments. Welcome back, everyone. Episode 151. After last week's historic episode, it's all downhill from here.
Nah, we moved to the next plateaus of...
Well, plateau doesn't sound very good either.
Well, there's little plateaus. Like 151 was a milestone plateau.
How about a notch? We're taking it up a notch.
Okay. Because, later this year we'll have our third anniversary. And
yes,
then
we will.
We'll be headed towards the 200 milestone and on from there.
I was talking to someone earlier this week, and they were asking me sort of like how I felt about hitting 150. And I was, of course, non-committal and a bit wishy-washy about it, because there are positive things, there are negative things, and it was just like I never really 100% thought about hitting a specific mark, so I don't actually have any specific feelings about getting to 150.
That's fair.
So I don't know if we want to publicly state what our next milestone is, other than 3 years. You just mentioned 3 years.
Yeah.
We're coming up on that.
Well, I mean, you and I have talked about 2020 being the 5-year mark.
That's going to be a big year for us.
Of the show, which also happens to be our 25th year together. So that'll be pretty epic. When we hit 2020, I'll have a lot of stuff going on in it.
Mm-hmm. Just before we hopped on this recording, everybody, Jeff saw me doing math, and he's like, "Why are you doing math?" Because that's a genuinely shocking thing, and and because we were at 150, I wondered what it would be like to hit 1,000 episodes.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And I did the math super quickly and roughly. From here till roughly 1,000 episodes, where it's going to be at least another 16 years.
Okay.
And it's going to be around 2034.
Okay. And I'll be what, 70 something then? Okay.
We'll be like Statler and Waldorf of the gay podcast scene. That would be funny. Anyway.
Oh, gracious.
So what has happened? There's some stuff. Stuff has happened this past week.
Stuff has happened. On Friday, we went to the Lavender Library, which is one of our favorite places to go. The Queer Sacramento Authors Collective had a Milk and Cookies event there, which is one of the quarterly readings that the collective does. Excellent group read this week. We had Ellie Franks, who actually sampled a little bit from her Christmas story that'll be coming out in Dreamspinner's Advent Calendar. Yep. Amy Lane read from her new book that actually comes out this week called Any Fish Will Do. J. Scott Coatsworth read a little bit from his River City Chronicles. Pat Henshaw debuted a new work in progress there, and I also read from Hockey Player's Heart. We'll actually have links in the show notes if you want to check out any of the video from that. That was pretty cool to hang out with those guys. And I also sent back the first round of edits on Netminder this week to Harmony Inc. to getting that 4th book in the Codename Winger series done. So good stuff all around. And, as if that wasn't enough, we also got to catch up with Joyfully J this week. Mm-hmm. She's here. There's a lot going on in September for her blog. Off the recording, we actually talked about that September is the 7th anniversary of Joyfully J.
That's a nice anniversary to have.
That's pretty awesome that she's been doing what she's done for the last 7 years. Plus, September is also Challenge Month, and she has a preview of that coming up right here. I'm excited to welcome back to the podcast Jay from Joyfully J. Great to have you back.
Hi, Jeff. How are you? Good. Thank you so much. It's been a while since I've been here.
It has been. I don't know. We were talking before we pushed the record button. It doesn't feel like it's been like March or April, and yet the entire summer is shot by.
I know. I can't believe how fast the summer has gone by. I have 2 starting high school next summer, so I feel like there's like a clock looming, and the summer just flew by.
September Challenge Month.
Yes, I'm super excited. This is our 4th annual Reading Challenge Month in September. And for those who haven't been a part of it in the past, what we do is have a month-long series of reading challenges. So 1 a week for the 4 weeks of September. And the way it works is that each week the reviewers and I read books that fit the challenge themes. And then we have prizes. We have sponsors for each week. So we have readers can enter to win by either commenting on any of our challenges, so just entering a normal comment on our review, or for bonus entries, they can read along with their own challenge books. So this is my absolute lots of readers who pick up their own challenge books and they read, and then on Friday at the end of the week, they write a mini review. So, few sentences, a paragraph, nothing major, on our challenge post. And so I love getting to see what the readers are reading and getting them to hear about it, because a lot of times people are nervous about commenting, which you never should be, but people are. And so this is a way to really get involved, and I love seeing what every year as we pick our books. I look back on this year, and many favorites have come for me out of things that I've read. Like I realized last year I read I think Risk Taker by Lily Morton, who was a completely new to me author at the time, and I read it for Self-Published Book Week, and I went insane over the book. And now, I've loved everything that she's written, and I'm obsessed with her, but it's just funny because that was a completely cold pick off of, a request because it fit Self-Published Book Week, and I knew nothing about the book before. So it's always fun to get some new favorites and try some things I wouldn't normally pick up.
Yeah, it's always great when you get to find something new simply because it was suggested like that. Yeah, it's exciting. So we have, like I said, broken down into 4 weeks. So the way our weeks work, week 1 is New to Me Author Week. And that's actually one that, funny enough, we've had all 4 years because it's always a reader favorite. And as much as I read, there's still constantly new authors that I haven't tried. So this is always a fun week, and it's an ease into the challenge because pretty much everybody can find an author that they haven't read. And that week is going to be sponsored by 9 Star Press, and they're giving out 6 $20 gift cards. So that's super fun. And then our next week is Diverse Book Weeks, Diverse Book Week, I guess. And for that one, we're pretty much encompassing diversity on lots of levels. So racial, cultural, religious diversity, physical disability, different kinds of sort of broader under the LGBT spectrum than just gay romance. So we're really looking for all kinds of book diversity. And we've got tons of authors who have donated books for that. So I think we have 6 or 7 prize bundles of like 7 or 8 books each, which is fabulous, nice. All featuring diverse stories. Yeah, people are so super generous. And then the 3rd week, we're bringing back one that we did a couple of years ago, which is International Week. So the challenge is read something set in a country. We try here to also read outside of US and UK because so many books, especially historicals, are set in the UK. So we try to branch out. And we found some really fun ones. And then the last week, we're doing a repeat from last year, which is Self-Published Book Week. Because that's another fun one. I find that people really love self-published books, or there are people who are sometimes wary to try them just because they don't have the knowledge of the publisher. So this is a really fun one, but also super easy because self-published books are everywhere now. Yeah. And again, we've got some fabulous authors who have donated a bunch of prize packs. So I think we have 4 or 5 prize packs for Self-Published Author Week as well, or Self-Published Book Week. And then Dream Spinner, once again, is going to be our grand prize winner. So our grand prize
sponsor. So the way that it works is that each week there's a prize for the people who earn entries that week, and then at the very end, everyone and she will say to be part of it again. And they've always been a super generous sponsor, so I'm really excited about that one. And I think it's going to be another good month. It's always a fun event, and like I said, we get lots of reader involvement.
Yeah, it sounds like it's set up really good. Good selection of the weeks, and I assume it'll kick off Labor Day Monday on the 3rd.
Right. Starts the first week in September. So probably on Sunday we'll have the basic kickoff information post. It will talk about what's happening for the week, what we're reading. Also, for folks who want some information now, and I'll give you the links for that, we have a coming soon post that explains the week or explains the month, reiterates all the challenges, and talks about the basics of how it works. And then last Sunday, we ran our basic prize preview post, which I also can give you the link to, that shows all the prizes that we have confirmed so far. And then this Sunday, which I guess will actually be yesterday by the time folks are listening to the podcast, sorry, a little time warp there, we will have the list of what we're reading. So that's always helpful. A lot of readers like to know what we're reading because they like to read the same thing we are. So as many that we have finalized that we can list, we'll put in there for you. So if people want to read along the same books as us, they can, but absolutely no obligation. Lots of people like to pick their own challenge books. So we'll be sharing that. And then the following Sunday it kicks off because, oh my God, summer is over and we're in September. I can't even believe it.
Yeah, it is very crazy. Well, we're looking forward to seeing all that. We'll definitely put all those links into the show notes so folks can get their prep done before we hit Labor Day weekend.
Sure.
So something else you've introduced is a group for your readers and users on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. We just started it 2 days ago, and the group is called the Joyful Jays, which I think is kind of fun. I'm excited about that.
You need a T-shirt. You so need T-shirts. I envision like a Pink Lady sort of T-shirt script font or something.
Sort of badass reader biker group. Yeah. So we started it because we were I was looking for another way to sort of enhance the reader community and make it easier for people to interact with each other. And so it's got a whole bunch of different things. We're reposting or linking to all of our blog posts. So that's a great way if you're on Facebook to hear about all the posts that come through. We'll also be sharing blog news and information and events. A lot of the things actually that if you used to subscribe to my now mostly defunct weekly newsletter that we put there in terms of news, or that I put in my Coming This Week post on the blog. So information about Challenge Month, information about things that are happening on the blog or in the romance community at large, I'll include there. We're also having on Tuesdays will be New Release Tuesdays. So we'll have a thread where people can share books that they're excited about that are coming out. And authors are welcome to use that thread to also do some self-promotion if they want to include their own new releases or books they're just excited to read. And then on Fridays will be Sales and Deals Day. So we'll have a thread there as well where people can share information about sales they're having, again, on their own books or just things that they see in, around that they want to share with everybody. And I'm really excited because so far people have been really interactive, and I'm hoping this will be just another place where people can talk more about books and about romance and comment on the reviews and what they thought about the book, and just be a way that people can talk maybe more directly to each other than they can always on the blog. Although we still want you to stop by the blog, and we still love comments there. I read every comment that comes through. But we're hoping that this will just enhance not only the community, but also help people find out more about what's happening on the blog if they're not there as frequently as they're on Facebook. Because if they're like me, they're probably on Facebook all the time. So, and I have a lot of ideas of some things I'd like to do, but we're going to let the community grow a little bit and people get settled in. And then I'd like to, start looking into doing some events and some other things on there. So I'm really excited about it. And I hope that people will stop by and join. You don't have to be a reader of the blog, although, of course, we would love it if you or a blog reader as well. But anybody who's interested in just talking about romance and books and fun stuff going on in the community is welcome to join us. So we're looking forward to that, and I'm excited to see how it grows.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go over and put myself in there, and we'll link to it in the show notes as well, so everybody else can go find it.
Please come on in. The funniest thing is I put in a filter question to avoid the bots, and just said, tell me your favorite LGBT romance. And it's so funny because everyone's mad at me. They're all writing, I can't decide. How am I supposed to pick? So it's making me laugh to see all the comments from people who are like horrified at having to choose their favorite child. So it's kind of a funny question. So
I trust that's also an acceptable answer.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, please come on over, and everyone else, welcome.
Excellent. So we can't wrap it up with you without getting a couple book recommendations. What are you reading these days that you're loving?
Sure. Well, I'll have to put a plug in for a book that I read while I was on vacation a couple weeks ago, which is Whisper by Tal Bauer, which is a follow-up to Hush, although with the exception of a couple of cross cameos from the previous main characters, completely stands alone. This book, I'm telling you, Jeff, it's 971 pages per Amazon. I read it in 48 hours.
Oh my God, did you sleep?
Put it down. I mean, it helps that I was on vacation, so I didn't have like a life that I had to be dealing with, but could not put it down. It features a young CIA agent who actually appears in the first book as well. A young CIA agent, Chris, who is the expert on Afghanistan, which is a completely sort of unknown area of the world until 9/11. And the book starts on 9/11, where suddenly he's brought into all of this because suddenly Afghanistan, of course, with bin Laden, it becomes huge. And it follows him and the military, sort of the first part, as they go to Afghanistan and they're first on the ground trying to hunt for bin Laden. And what's done so well here is, I mean, if you told me this was a nonfiction recount of the early days of the war, it reads just like that. And I know that Tal Bauer did a ton of research into a lot of the military stuff, and a lot of the things that happen are actually taken from real life interviews, real life, transcripts of things that have happened. And then along the way, he meets his love interest, who is in the military group that's, connected to his CIA group. And so then the story sort of starts to follow their love and their romance and how they deal with, the time of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and when, they're ultimately married and the CIA has no accommodations for, at the time, federal government employees to have same-sex spouses. And so it gets into that a little bit and then turns into a thriller at the end. And I can tell you, I still have like a giant book hangover from it. So definitely I can recommend that one. Something else that I read that I really liked at that came out around then as well is Salt Magic, Skin Magic by Lee Welch. I don't know if you heard about this one. This is a historical paranormal combination, which is, funny enough, a combination I'm finding like I really like. I mean, KJ Charles, Jordan L. Hawk, like there's a lot of authors who write this so well. And I think it's kind of a fun genre because historical tends to have a lot of rules. I mean, at the time, society was very structured. There's a lot of rules. And then when you add the paranormal element, it sort of takes that structured historical society and then shakes it up with all this paranormal. So in this case, it features a main character who has been trapped on his father's estate for the last year and a half and trapped by some sort of magic, so he can't leave. And then a mage who comes in because he thinks that the son is cursing somebody, and he comes in to investigate, and it turns out the two end up, of course, falling in love. But in the interim, the story, they're trying to figure out just what it is that is keeping him trapped here. And I can't give too much detail because it would spoil everything. But the way the story unfolds and you learn what's really happening, and there's a curse on the father, and what's going on, between them is so exciting and fascinating, and just the world building is really well done. I'm really excited about this one, and it got great buzz. So
cool.
And then upcoming, for this week, I am reviewing Few Good Fish, which is Amy Lane's third book in her, I want to say it's called like the Fish Out of Water series, I believe. And it is a romantic suspense, and really, like, I'm so enjoying the story. Each one gets more exciting. They follow a private investigator and an attorney who work for the same firm, and there's an overarching mystery that follows the book. So you really want to be starting with the first. But I was super excited about that. And right now I'm reading actually Private Charter by N.R. Walker. So I can't give a full review because I haven't finished it. It comes out next week, or this coming week, I guess, in podcast time. And this is just like a sexy and romantic, the classic guy plans a vacation with a date who ends up canceling and he goes alone, which is a common romance trope. And he has 2 weeks on a private yacht. So it's just him and the captain of the yacht, and they get up to all kinds of delicious, sexy times and romance, and also sort of a journey for the main character who has a very high pressure job and is basically boiling over with the pressure as he sort of learns to relax and enjoy his life a little bit. And there's tiny white Speedos. So that will be my last plug for that one.
Forced proximity
fun,
and
romantic.
tiny white Speedos. How can that not be good?
Yes, very summery. So for those of you who are on the Northern Hemisphere and summer is winding down, this is a great last gasp. And everyone else who's freezing cold right now, this will make you think of the tropics. So I'm really enjoying that one.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Thanks as always for those book recommendations and telling us all about Challenge Week. We will
I'm really excited for Challenge Month.
We'll link up to everything in the show
Great.
notes so people can find that. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely be catching up with you at GRL in just what feels like just a few weeks.
I know. I'm really excited. I can't wait to see you.
In the Hockey Player's Heart, the feel-good gay romance by Jeff Adams and Will Knaus, hockey star Caleb Carter returns to his hometown to recover from an injury. He never expects to run into his one-time crush at a grade school fundraiser. Seeing Aaron Price hits him hard, like being checked into the boards. The attraction is still there, even after all these years, and Caleb decides to make a play for the school teacher. You miss 100% of the shots you never take, right? Aaron has been burned by love before and can't imagine what a celebrity like Caleb could possibly see in a guy like him. Their differences are just too great. But as Aaron spends more time with Caleb, he begins to wonder if he might have what it takes to win the Hockey Player's Heart. Get the Hockey Player's Heart in ebook, paperback, or as an audiobook performed by me, Vince Sterling, wherever you buy books.
So as the summer is winding down, I thought we'd quickly mention that we have been to the movies a couple of times.
Far more than our usual average.
We actually did not see any superhero movies this past summer season. For some reason. We just never got around to it.
Yeah.
But in the past couple of weeks, we went and saw Meg, the giant shark movie.
Which rocked.
Thumbs up on that one. We saw Christopher Robin.
I was so disappointed. I wanted more from that. There were some enchanting moments, but I actually have to give it a thumbs down, which makes me sad.
Thumbs down on that one for me as well. We also recently watched the Hulu original documentary Becoming Bond. It is really funny and interesting documentary about George Lazenby, and it sort of tracks his career, his life and career as the infamous one-time guy who played Bond.
Yeah, taking over there for Sean Connery.
Yeah,
I loved it. That was a hoot. And there's some stars. Jane Seymour's in this documentary. Dana Carvey makes an appearance as Johnny Carson. But it's also really good hearing George's story, his one-time Bond. We also saw this past weekend, Crazy Rich Asians, which of course is Storming the Country. A very successful romantic comedy, apparently the first time since Joy Luck Club I heard that a cast has been primarily Asian. I thought this was I loved everything about this movie. And it makes you wonder why we can't get more diversity in romance in general, because this movie rocked everything Yeah, if you have not seen it yet, you really need to get out there and see it before it leaves the theaters. And the way it's been going in 2 weeks, I don't think it's leaving any day soon.
Highly recommend it. So, let's talk about some books.
Books. So I totally get why you've been to Lavender Shores multiple times this summer. I picked up the Palisades, did the audiobook as narrated by Kurt Graves. Now, you reviewed this back in episode 144, and of course, gushed all over it because it was awesome. And now I totally get it.
I gushed.
You gushed. You can listen to Will's review for his expert recap of it. But what I love so much about this book, other than the great romance that Rosalind Abel constructed here, I loved Joel's story. He has a lot of baggage. He has a lot of stuff from his childhood to get through and a lot of issues with his father, who you rightfully called, I believe, a dick in your review. Yeah. And Joel's journey really struck me, made me cry a couple times because I felt bad for him, and I loved it. And I'll certainly be going back to Lavender Shores to pick up some more of these books because they're awesome. And speaking of, you have made your 4th trip because now you've read book 4.
Yes, book 4 in the series is called The Shipwreck. And this book sort of shines the spotlight on Lamont, who is Andrew's brother. We get sort of a peek at Lamont in... A peek. I'm in a weird mood this week. I don't know. Anyway, so we get a little looky-loo at Lamont in the first book, and that got me curious. I really wanted to find out what he was all about.
Absolutely.
So now we finally do get to know what he's all about in book 4. Lamont is an author, a successful one. He writes romances, and The Shipwreck picks up at a writer's convention where he essentially comes out as the man behind the pseudonym Ginger Peach.
Oh my God, what a name. I love that.
I know, it's crazy. So Ginger Peach is the author of some very highly successful, super sexy paranormal romances. That's how Lamont makes his bread and butter. And while he's at this convention, he runs into super sexy cover model, a guy named Tyler. And they get to talking, and Lamont is sort of bemoaning the fact that he has to go home to Lavender Shores in just a few days and go to what is essentially a baby shower. Here's a little spoiler for our happy couple in book 1. They're having a baby shower in book 4. They're having a gender reveal party. Lamont is worried because though his family certainly means well, they're going to try and fix him up. Because Lamont is sort of the quiet one in the family. He kind of stays, to himself. Doesn't get out much. He's a writer after all. And so Tyler sort of volunteers his services to serve as his fake boyfriend for the weekend.
One of your favorites.
Fake relationship trope for the win. So I love this book. I already, that's one of my favorite things ever. So that's what Tyler does. He goes to Lavender Shores to go to this party with Lamont, and it's a big success. Everyone falls in love with Tyler and thinks he's the ideal man for Lamont, and they're the perfect couple. Even though it's fake. And so while Tyler is there, Lamont shows him around the perfect little bucolic town that they live in. He takes them to a very special spot called the Shipwreck. It is actually a ship that was stranded on a sandbar on the shore right there close to the town. And it ends up becoming very special for these two. Tyler is not only super gorgeous and a male model, he's also a photographer. That's what he really wants to do. So he spends a couple of days hanging around town, taking, wonderful photos. The two of them end up falling in love as the fake relationship ends up turning into a real relationship. That kind of thing, as things are wont to do. And eventually we moved towards the part in the story. Part of the fake relationship trope is always the couple has to get to the point where they have to decide if what they're feeling is fake or is it real. That's part of the trope. And once they get past that, they realize that their feelings for each other are very real. And they're going to take some time apart from one another to think about that. Tyler is going to go home to, I believe it's DC for the holidays. Incidentally, this book takes place during the holidays, but it's not really a Christmas book per se, because the holidays aren't an integral part to the storyline.
Okay.
Anyway, so they spend some time apart and realize that they just love each other so very, very much. But unfortunately, it comes to light that Tyler also makes money as a porn star.
Uh-oh.
And this is the only part that kind of left me scratching my head. For storytelling reasons, I wasn't 100% sure how his porn past really works into how his current work life is working. I don't know. There was a lot of stuff that didn't quite make sense to me, and this is really the only hiccup in the entire series. Lamont reacts badly when he finds out that Tyler is also doing porn, which also didn't make a ton of sense to me, because the entire basis of their relationship was essentially an escort situation. When they met at the convention, Tyler says, well, sometimes people pay me money for my time. Why don't I just come to this party with you? And there was initially going to be money exchanging hands. That fell by the wayside, rather quickly as their relationship began to blossom. Anyway, they end up splitting up. This is the dark moment of the book. I'm not going to call spoiler alert because this is a romance novel. We all know that at 75 to 80% in the book, the couple is going to hit a rough patch and they have to decide if they're going to fight for one another, which they always do because this is a romance novel and they have to end up together at the end. So they eventually do the smart thing, get back together and work out their differences. As in every book in the series, the title refers to a certain location in Lavender Shores that means something, a great deal to the couple. In this case is the Shipwreck. And the Shipwreck, it's, oh my gosh. Even though their black moment wasn't my favorite, the end, the super schmoopy romantic finale just was like, it's my favorite of the entire series so far. It involves a shipwreck, and I'm not going to spoil it because it's really damn good. So I highly recommend The Shipwreck by Rosalind Abel.
Cool. And Rosalind's actually going to be here in a couple weeks in episode 153 on the week of September 9th. So we're looking very forward to that. And if you want to get any of the books we just talked about, the links, of course, are in the show notes. And we do use those affiliate links. We do use affiliate links, and if you use those, you'll be supporting the podcast with a few pennies that we'll get if you get the books or the movies or anything else we talk about here on the show.
And as always, there are other ways to help support the podcast. You can join us on Patreon for as little as 25 cents an episode. Your pledge helps pay for the cost of producing and distributing this show. And if you join us on Patreon at whatever level you feel comfortable, there are all sorts of goodies like, a personalized thank you sent directly from us to you. Also, there is a bonus episode that we do every single month, especially for our fantastic family of Patreon members. So if this sounds interesting to you, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast. That is patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast.
Did you know that podcasts love to get reviews too? Taking a moment to leave a review about the Big Gay Fiction Podcast helps us with the show's visibility online. Please take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a review. Your comments help other readers of gay romance discover this show. Thanks for helping us spread the word about the Big Gay Fiction Podcast.
So as you may know, we are featured bloggers for the Coastal Magic Convention that comes up in February 2019 down in Daytona Beach. We have our first of our featured author segments now as we welcome Hank Edwards to the show. He is the author of the Critter Catcher series, and his brand new book in that series came out earlier this month. And he's also been re-releasing his Fluffers Inc. series as well. So we got a lot to talk to him about, so let's get to that. As part of our Coastal Magic featured author presentations this year, I'm excited to welcome Hank Edwards to the podcast. Hank's been writing gay fiction for more than 20 years, crossing many subgenres along the way, including romantic comedy, contemporary paranormal, suspense, mystery, and wacky comedy. He's released 2 books this summer, Horror at Hideaway Cove, which is book 6 in the Critter Catcher series, and Vancouver Nights, which is the 3rd in the Fluffers Inc. series. Welcome, Hank.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to finally have you. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start with that most recent release, which happens to be a re-release of Vancouver Nights.
Yes. It's book 3 of my Charlie Higginsford series, and it was the first books that I published. And they're very filthy and they're very funny. So
it's hard to go wrong with filthy and funny.
It really is. I get some different feedback from people depending on what they're looking for. It's the 3rd book. I just got the rights back last year, and so I've been kind of re-editing them, and I wanted to add some more to the first book. So I added probably about 4 chapters to the first book as an intro to Charlie, the main character. He moves to Los Angeles from Idaho, a farm in Idaho, and I wanted to show his life back on the farm. So I added about 4 chapters there, like before he gets his job at Fluffers Inc., which is, where he works and excels. Some may say. And so then the 3rd book, I finally got around to just going through and giving a nice edit. And so I've put that up for pre-order now. And actually, it's probably available when this goes live. So I think the end of August.
Yep. And as you mentioned, Fluffers Inc. was your first book, and this is from back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
As you got your rights back, what inspired you to get everything kind of updated and repackaged to come out? I really, I've got it's kind of fun. I've got a soft spot for Charlie. A lot of people have a hard spot for Charlie, but I have a soft spot for Charlie, because he's a fun character to write. And he is very clumsy, but he's got a good heart. And it's just fun. And, it's not an angsty book. There's not really a lot of drama, but it's a lot of fun. And I wanted to kind of bring him back and kind of, dust off the dust and, make it a nice new cover. My husband created new covers for all the books. And, I just wanted to kind of go back and reintroduce where he came from. So, yeah, it was nice to get that back and want to clean some stuff up. What had inspired you back in the day to write these books and to have that be your first book that came out?
Well, back when I wrote them, I was writing, it was, really the beginnings of the internet, and a lot of it was submitting short stories to magazines, things like Bear, 100% Beef, that kind of stuff. So I was writing erotic short stories, and I had the idea of creating a linked short stories that I could sell to a magazine. So, as I was writing and I wanted it to be funny because I thought, anything other than sex sells, but humor sells too. So then my husband suggested, why don't you make that a book? And I was like, oh, well, that's a good idea. So, as I wrote all these short stories, I grouped them together as chapters, and they did have a common link going through them, a storyline, because I was trying to link them all anyway. And so I sent them in to Allison, and they bought it.
Oh, I remember Allison.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago. It feels like, it's only 2000s, but still.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So Allison bought them, and then wanted the second one, but then the first one it wasn't selling as well as they'd wanted, so they stopped production on the second one, and then they let the first one go out of print. I think it was 5 years, and then Steve Berman from Lethe Press picked it up, And so, you know, it was really, I'm always grateful to him for that, because I was just kind of, well, you know, I'm never going to write, I'm never be more published, you know. So he helped me kind of kick that back into gear. He got the first one, and then he bought the next two to publish them. So that was cool.
What was it like revisiting these early works, and how would you say that your writing has changed over time?
Oh dear. I've become a better writer. At least I really think I did. It was, you know, it was very, and I tried to clean all that up. It was very, you know, specific about details, you know, like the acts and things like that. So, you know, I was writing for a whole different audience in a way in my head, you know, back then, because it was for Bear magazine, you know, 100% beef, that kind of stuff. So, it was, I wanted to rewrite it and make it a little more accessible and make it just better. So, but my writing has improved. I hope. So yeah, so it was very interesting going back and revisiting those. And I'd forgotten a lot about I actually made myself laugh, which is good. You know, I guess that's okay to say. You know, you know, when you forget what you write and you write it and you read it again and you're like, oh. So. And
you put these out on audio now too, right?
Steve actually did that. Steve Berman for Lethe. He put the first two out on audio. And he didn't tell me about it. He just kind of like suddenly sent me this link, and I was like, "What is this?" And I went out there and was like, "My book's in audio." You know, I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's kind of cool." So I've left those out there because they every now and then somebody will want an audiobook of it, but they're not the same versions as the new releases. So it's the old version, but
okay, people can compare and contrast on their own then.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Do you see more Fluffers in your future ever?
You know, I do. As I was revamping these books, I'd made notes for further adventures for Charlie and his friends, and so I do have some ideas for going forward. It's just, you know, trying to fit that into the schedule and see where that falls. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, moving up to something more current on in your releases, you have new critter catchers out there with Horror at Hideaway Cove.
I do.
Tell us about that. It sounds like a juicy summer read.
It really is. It's the 6th book in the series. I have one more planned after this at some point. I have to write it. No release date for that yet, but there will be at least one more in the series. I'm kind of going to cap it probably after that. But this one kind of sees the relationship between Cody and Demetrius, the two main characters, sort of, you know, become fully realized. They get married, and they go off on a honeymoon, and they go to this nice little private island that's got one little cabin on it in the middle of this really big lake, and of course get tangled up with a lake monster. So, which is like Nessie here, you know, on my T-shirt. So it's very that was kind of fun exploring that dynamic between them, while also them figuring out the mystery around the lake monster. So
that's cool. Now, tell us about critter catchers in general. What's the series about as a whole?
It's, you know, it started as a story orgy story, which was a group of us. I think there was 5 of us, wrote prompt-based stories, and we would publish a chapter every Monday. And so we all used the same prompt, and then we'd write different stories based on it. So I had some, the first book, Terror by Moonlight, was born out of that. And I think the second book as well, Chasing the Chupacabra. And, you know, I really love, I'm drawn to paranormal stuff, and I really love humor as well. So I wanted to combine those two and mash them up. And then, you know, I wanted to kind of have this dynamic of, like, you know, 2 best friends working together and then, like, getting involved in these crazy, like, outlandish paranormal cases and not knowing what to do with them. So they kind of, it's sort of just like taking on a life of its own. I just, you know, Cody and Demetrius just sort of do things now without, like, in my head. And I'm like, well, all right, guys, hang on, let me write it down. You know, so it's weird.
Paranormal and comedy, it just... In some ways, it seems to go together so well because of like, you see the popularity of Supernatural,
right,
and like the banter between those two, right?
Yep.
And then like the titles to these books, it's so Saturday morning serial at the same time.
Yes, and that's exactly right. I wanted that all like, the dramatic serial, it's a perfect example. And yeah, Supernatural. I actually in one of the books, they talk about comparing themselves to Sam and Dean quite a bit. It's like, no, we're not getting in the car and driving off to a crossroads to summon a demon. We're not going to do that.
There are some things you just shouldn't do, and that would be one of them.
Haven't you learned? Yeah.
So what got you started on your journey as a writer?
Oh, I've always loved writing, and I know you hear that a lot. I listen to your guys' podcasts. I know like so many writers say that, but I grew up writing. I also drew comic strips when I was younger. I actually created like comic strip border frames, like templates, and I got them copied back in the day when there was like a big Xerox machine, and I would draw comic books about different things. But a lot of how I started writing was, I would see a movie that I loved and I would write a sequel to it, using those same characters. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And from there I branched off into like my own stories. So.
Mm-hmm. What were some of those movies that you wrote sequels for?
Oh gosh, like Alien, the original Alien. I wrote my own sequel to Aliens. Not Aliens, but I wrote my own sequel to Alien, where she like actually makes it back, and there's an alien on board, like a International Space Station kind of thing. So yeah, and I would type it up on my sister's typewriter. I used up all their ribbon; they hated it, and I made them into little books. I actually folded the paper and stuff like it was. Yeah, I was very creative.
and very thorough. Like if you were typing on a way that you could actually fold them and bind them.
Sometimes I would like tear them and then tape them back together to make it easier to put them in the typewriter. So it depended. I had a lot of time. We only had 3 channels and we didn't have internet. And
it's interesting to hear how you wrote sequels for your own movies, because in a way you were doing fanfic.
Right.
At the end of the day, I mean, and that's the gateway for so many.
Yep. You're right. I never thought of it that way. That's a good point. So yeah, I was doing that all back in the day.
On the typewriter. I just love that. Who are some of your author influences? And you could really go in or out of the genre here, depending on how you how you need to answer.
So out of the genre, which are big influences, is Stephen King is a huge influence, and I've read like all his stuff. I love him. There's some other like mystery writers. I read a lot of Jonathan Kellerman. I read like John Sanford. I really love the mysteries and the kind of like the detective and the sort of like almost a hard-boiled kind of thing. In the genre, I've really come to appreciate T.J. Klune's abilities as a writer, and I just finished Angel Martinez, her Offbeat Crimes series, which was funny and paranormal and spooky and sweet. And I'm just getting into, I just discovered, and I know it's been out there a while, Jordan Castillo Price's Psychop series, which is really awesome. So, I try to bounce around a little bit and read all different sorts of stuff. But yeah, so.
Well, it makes sense you bounce around. You bounce around a lot of genres.
I do, yeah.
Which I get. How did you end up kind of just going from here to there? Because you started, with the comedy, and then you kind of branched from there.
Yeah, it depends on what's holding my interest today. I think, it's like, where do I want to go and how it's like the spooky stuff always kind of pulls me in. I wrote a series, Venom Valley, several years ago, and that was I wanted old school vampires. So that was more like based on like Stephen King's Salem's Lot, right? I wanted the old scary like Universal Studios vampires back, and so there's zombies and vampires in the American Old West, and I don't know where that came from. It just sort of came up and it all mashed together. So yeah, I do a lot of different stuff like that. I try to make it unique.
What would you say the trademark of a Hank Edwards book is, regardless of the genre that it's in?
I try to have the characters. I try to have a lot of like their banter. Like with me and my friends, we we banter a lot back and forth, and I try to have that feel realistic, like, characters that really interact together, and I really am drawn to the characters driving the plot forward, right? And so it's more, to me, it's more about the people that you're reading about. So I try to keep that top of mind, no matter what's going on. Like, even if there's like vampires and zombies taking over, it's like these characters are the ones that you're there for. So I hope I do it. I don't know.
Are there subgenres that you want to try that you haven't yet?
I would like to do some more contemporary, and some more just romance. It's just like the like romance part of it, without the paranormal part. Without other stuff coming in. Just do a romance. So I need to. I'm reading up a little bit more on that, kind of like seeing how other people do it. So that's on my list this year, to kind of figure out how to make Hank Edwards write that way. I gotta put the spooky stuff away, and then I gotta okay, it's contemporary. No, there's not a werewolf. Stop it. No, there's not a haunted house. Get away from here. So,
they're not running away from something or having to kill a zombie. They just get to fall in love.
Exactly.
And maybe have a normal issue.
Yeah, right. So I've done that in the past. I need to work on that a little bit. I have some story orgy singles from back in the day that are contemporary romances. I want to get back to that a little bit.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you pull towards any one genre? Like when you're sitting there and go, I'm going to do a new book. Do you pull towards one particular genre and have to pull yourself back somewhere else?
Yeah, I usually go to paranormal. I am, and I don't know why. Always loved things that are spooky and creepy. So, and I think it's just because they're spooky and creepy, and you have no power over them and stuff like that, and you're just like, I have to understand it. I have to be prepared. I don't know. So, yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, you described obviously some of those first stories was your sequel to Alien, so there is a connection back there.
Oh yeah, it's from way back.
Now you are going to Coastal Magic in February. It's your second time to come. What are you looking forward to this year?
Oh wow, talking to more people. Last year I said there were more people that I knew, more people than I thought I would, and I actually got to sit and talk to some authors that I had not had a chance to before, and it was really nice. I'd like to do that again, and participate even more with the off hours kind of events. So it was a really fun experience. I really enjoyed it. So I'm really happy to be going back.
Excellent. Any tips for any of our listeners who may be going for the first time?
Ooh,
such as us.
That's right. You guys, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys down there. You know what? So there was a group. When I went down, I was kind of by myself, and they had a greet and meet. And so, it's hard to, as you go in by yourself, it's hard to go up and talk to people. And somebody, a woman from a group came over and invited me to join their group. And I met these three people that were really nice. And then one of the authors, Shayla Patel, she and I kind of hung out a little bit throughout the weekend. So it was nice. Just go try to put those fears aside and go and talk to people. Or if you're with a group, invite somebody who's by themselves in, that just kind of helps. And I try to do that. When I go to JRL, I see somebody by themselves, I try to include them with what we're doing, that kind of thing. So, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's a good universal tip, I think, for a con. Yeah. Bring people over and don't be afraid to approach.
Right.
What's coming up for you? You've got these two books that are just out this summer, but what's coming up for you between now and Coastal?
Oh, geez. I actually have taken a step outside my boundaries, and I've co-authored a book. And I co-wrote a book with Deanna Wadsworth, who is awesome and a lot of fun to work with, and an amazing writer. And we, got on the Google Docs and we created this. We wrote this book. It's a humorous mystery series set in an imaginary town in western Michigan, and it's a hairstylist and a mortician that meet up and go on to solve a crime. So,
what a great combo.
They do. Yeah. So we have the first book done. We submitted it to Carina Press during their, tweet to get a read, and they wanted to read it. So they read it, and we got rejected from Carina. So, but we're considering where to send it next, and then we've talked about, we have ideas for books 2 and 3 in the series, and then so we need to start working on book 2. So, but hopefully, those will be coming out at some point within the next year, probably, knowing release cycles. And then I have the 7th book of Critter Catchers to write, and then I have a couple of other things I've put to the side that I want to go back to. So, yeah.
That's cool. How was the co-writing experience, since it was new for you?
It was interesting, and it was humbling, which is very interesting, because everybody has their different methods of writing, and Deanna writes, she puts down a bunch of words a day. She does a lot of dictation, which I think you're getting into now too. Mm-hmm. And I haven't yet figured out a good way to do that. So so she's like, yeah, I got 10,000 words done today. I'm like, what? Oh my God, I'm like, I got 2,000, whatever, but it was interesting to see another process, another author in the process. And, somebody, I like Deanna, we've known each other for years, and we get along really well. And so that was a really good experience. So, yeah, it was interesting to see that from a different point of view.
That's cool. We'll look forward to seeing that and seeing what this mystery comedy kind of looks like.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
Now, you've got a giveaway for our listeners, which is awesome. Please tell us what's up for grabs here.
I am going to give away the first book of the Critter Catchers series. It is on sale right now for 99 cents, but I would like to give it away. Oh, we can't do that because of licensing. Anyway.
Yeah, luckily you didn't make it sound too much like that song, so nobody will ever know that happened.
I think I'm a really bad singer. So in ebook format, so whatever format the reader needs, I have EPUB, Mobi, it could be PDF. So we will be giving away the Terror by Moonlight. And if somebody already has Terror by Moonlight and they win, then, I would be open to giving away another book in the series. So, I'm flexible.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, all that people will have to do to win that is to send us an email at giveaway@biggayfictionpodcast.com, put the word critters in the subject line, and they will be entered to win. And we'll give away we'll talk about all the ins and outs of the giveaway after the interview. So very cool about that. What's the best way for people to keep up with you online?
Oh, the best way is Facebook. I'm old, I'm older. It's like Facebook. Twitter confuses me. I get lost in the conversations. I'm like, what? Where's this going? I am on Instagram, but I always forget that I'm on Instagram, and I post a picture now and then. I'm like, oh, I have Instagram. I should post this picture. So Facebook is probably the best way. I have a Facebook page, my author page, and that's facebook.com/Hank Edwards Books. And you can friend me. I post mostly on my profile a lot, and that's just Hank Edwards. Look for me. And Twitter, I'm at Hank's Books. And again, Twitter confuses me, so I'll post now and then, but it's I'm not on there a lot. So I can't remember what Instagram is. I'm on Instagram, but I don't even remember what my handle is. So, but I'm out there. So follow me, and you'll see an occasional sunset or a cat picture or something. Yeah.
We'll link to everything in the show notes so people can find all that and do it that way. Hank, thanks so much for hanging out with us for a bit. We look forward to seeing you at both GRL and Coastal Magic.
Yes, thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys too.
Thank you to Hank for taking the time out of his busy schedule to sit down and talk to us.
Yeah, look forward to seeing him in February for Coastal Magic. We do have a Coastal Magic link in the show notes as well, so you could check out everything there is to see about that convention and maybe come hang out with us at the beach in February.
Oh, can't wait.
I know, right? It's going to be awesome. Now, just a reminder, Hank, of course, has a giveaway for us. You can get Terror by Moonlight, which is the first in the Critter Catcher series. All you have to do is send an email with the word critters in the subject line to giveaway@biggayfictionpodcast.com. Do that by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, September 2nd, and you will be entered to win an ebook of Terror by Moonlight.
Once again, that is giveaway at biggayfictionpodcast.com.
Yes.
Fantastic. Guys, I think that'll do it for this week's episode. Coming up next week in number 152, we've got Alexander Eberhardt. He'll join us to talk about his debut YA novel, There Goes Sunday School.
Yeah, I loved this book, reviewed it a few weeks back, and it was great talking to Alex about his debut. And we'll have that next week.
Okay, guys, remember, no matter where life takes you, the journey will always be sweeter when you have a book. So until next time, everyone, please keep turning those pages and keep reading.
For detailed show notes and links to everything discussed in this episode, go to biggayfictionpodcast.com. New episodes are available every Monday at all major podcast distributors. You can also find us on YouTube. I'm Derek McLean. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.